Hello, students. We're going to be picking up on page 78 in our text. The boy, pausing at the doorway before entering the office. On the thin side, black hair, neatly combed, blue plaid shirt, open at the collar, sharply creased chinos. So, has a really sharp crease in them, like usually when you iron your pants. Okay. Trent imagined the boy's mother inspecting him prior to his departure for headquarters, checking his fingernails perhaps, checking the fingernails himself as they shook hands. Trent found that there was no evidence of their having been bitten. An indication. Everything was an indication. Typically when people bite their nails, it's because of anxiety or because they're upset about something. It's some type of an emotional reaction. So he was looking for that. Trent ushered him into the office. The boy's step was halting, blue eyes blinking in the harsh light. He appeared intimidated, which was to be expected. A glint of curiosity in his eyes, but no suspicion. Trent was expert at detecting suspicion. Arranging a smile on his face, he welcomed the boy with a raising of his arms, an attitude of praise for something not yet earned. "You're Jason," omitting the family name, establishing a sense of familiarity, but maintaining a degree of authority for himself, announcing only his family name. "I'm Trent." He motioned to the boy to be seated, maneuvering deftly so that the boy ended up in the lower chair. Trent seated himself opposite, slouching a bit so that his loftier appearance would not be obvious until later, and even then, almost subliminally. "I appreciate your cooperation, Jason, and we'll try to make this as brief and as painless as possible. It would be wonderful if you came up with information that would help find the perpetrator of this terrible crime." Voice mild, informal. The boy nodded. "I hope I can help. I'll do my best." His first words, well modulated. A small swallow before answering, hands moving slightly but not defensively. "I know you will." Jason shot a quick glance around the room, observing it for the first time. "Sorry for the smallness of the office," Trent said. "All the rooms are being used and we drew this one." The use of "we" designed to give the boy a sense of their being in this together, as partners, as associates. Nodding again, Jason seemed to relax, settling back in the chair a bit. Trent positioned his hand over the record button of the tape recorder. "For the purpose of accuracy, we'll be recording our conversation. Is this acceptable, Jason?" The boy nodded in agreement. Trent looked at the boy's trusting face, the surface innocence in his wide-eyed gaze. Was he truly innocent, or was this a mask? Trent was aware of the masks people wear, and it was his job to remove the masks, if not entirely, then at least to allow a glimpse of the evil underneath. Was there evil in this boy? Was he capable of an evil act? We're all capable, Trent thought, remembering Carl Seaton and the innocence in his eyes, which resembled the look in the eyes of Jason Durant. "Just relax, Jason. Think of this as a conversation, no more, no less." Trent was conscious of using his avuncular voice. "We'll talk about the events of Monday, what you saw, what you remember seeing." He was conscious of avoiding the word murder. Would use soft words throughout the interrogation. "Memory is a strange device, Jason." The constant use of Jason's name was important, personal, avoiding the impersonal. It plays tricks. What we remember or think we remember, and the opposite, what we've forgotten or think we've forgotten. We'll find out all about it together, establishing them as a team. Think of this as a kind of adventure. I hope I can help out, the boy said. Don't worry about it. Just relax. We're alone here, only the two of us. You don't mind being alone away from the rest of your friends, do you? And now the first important step. I mean, we can have other people here if you want, a lawyer or counsel or even your mother. The object was to isolate the boy, to avoid the presence of a lawyer, parent, or guardian. It had to be done immediately at the outset and so deftly that the boy would not become suspicious. The words were important, of course, because they would appear on the official record, audio and transcript. But what would not show up on the record was Trent's casual attitude, the shrug of his shoulders that conveyed the ridiculous idea of having other people present. The mention of his mother was deliberate, counting on the boy's pre-adolescent pride, the humiliation of having his mother on hand to give him support. All of this to elicit from the boy the answer he sought and now received. No, that's fine. And to make certain, okay, this way then, without counsel. Yes, fine, Jason. Then let's proceed. First of all, tell me a bit about yourself. Well, I'm 12 years old, 13 in November. I'll be starting 8th grade in September. Jason fell silent. What else was there to tell? Hobbies? Jason shrugged. I'm not too interested in hobbies. I read sometimes, email on the internet. I have a pen pal in Australia. He lives in Melbourne. Chat rooms on the internet? There's a teen chat room, but I only listen, watch. I mean, I never say anything. Shy, right? An inclination of the head. I guess so. Spend a lot of time alone? Kind of. I have a little sister. Her name's Emma. She's a nice kid, smart. Friends? Not many. I guess I don't make friends too easy. Jason was impatient to get on with the questions about Monday, even though he didn't think he had much to offer and would probably disappoint this Mr. Trent. He was also uncomfortable with these personal questions. What did they have to do with what he had seen or not seen that day? Maybe Mr. Trent was trying to find out how reliable he could be as a witness. The questions also made Jason realize how empty his life really was. The guys in the other rooms probably had a lot of things to tell. Jack O'Shea and Tim Connors could brag about the basketball games they won, for instance. What did he have to offer? An email pen pal from Australia? I read sometimes. What kind of books do you like to read? Mr. Trent asked, as if reading his mind. All kinds, but I really like mysteries, horror stories, Stephen King, science fiction. You don't mind all that violence in those books, people killing each other? It's only stories. They're not real. How about movies and television? Do you like violent ones too? Horror stuff? Jason was puzzled. He liked horror stories, but he wasn't wild about them. And somehow these questions made it sound like he was some kind of fanatic when it came to horror stuff. I like other kinds of stories and movies too. I mean, adventure like Indiana Jones and Star Wars. They're kind of violent too, aren't they? I don't know. He thought of them as cartoons unrelated to anything in real life. They're unreal. You seem to be fascinated by things that are unreal, Trent said. So, side note. So do you see how he's just taking pieces of what he is saying and he's really manipulating it to become more of what he is trying to gain from him? It's a very, very powerful thing to be able to do. Do I? Jason wondered. He had never really thought about it. Do you sometimes get confused between what's real and unreal? Jason squirmed, fidgeted, tried not to show his impatience and his growing uneasiness. I don't know what you mean, he said. He felt like he did in class when the teacher explained something that he didn't understand, unable to process it in his mind. That was what was happening now with this real, unreal stuff. I mean, are you always aware of what is real, what is happening to you at any given moment, or maybe what's not real, but fantasy, like a dream? Do you sometimes confuse a dream with what's actually going on? No. Emphatic. Why was he asking these questions? Trent wanted to move on. The boy's attitude, his restlessness, his hands moving to his face, scratching at his arm, all indicated his innocence and his puzzlement. But his disposition toward violent movies and stories was now on the record, for whatever use might be made of it later. So, pause one more time. So as I was reading for the first time, I said this is very much so out of context. So it's like when you say something to somebody, but they just pull out the part that suits their motives, right? So it's a scummy thing to do. Okay, back in. Not wishing to make the boy uncomfortable, Trent changed tactics. Now, let's get down to business about Monday, the day you worked on that puzzle with Alicia. Avoiding the fact that was the day of Alicia's murder. Almost eagerly, Jason nodded. Well, tell me about that day, Jason. Your activities in general, and then we can get down to specifics, and I'll help you remember what you think you don't remember. Regard it as a kind of game, okay? Sure, relief in his voice. And Jason told him how he spent the day from the time he got up and ate breakfast, went to the Y with his mother, lunchtime, cheeseburgers, and the afternoon visiting Alicia at her house and the jigsaw puzzle. Then home. Exactly what he had told the detective. Trent listened, his eyes and ears alert to the boy's voice, his postures and attitudes, taking note of the way the movement of his body either matched or clashed with his narrative. And that was why Trent finished the interrogations in such exhaustion of both mind and body. All of his senses were concentrating on the subject, absorbing, accumulating details and nuances, impressions. And now to move into a new phase of questioning. How were you feeling Monday? How was I feeling? Surprised, puzzled. Yes, were you happy or sad or upset about something? Again, Jason felt disquiet and uneasy, like something was wrong. These are funny questions, he said. About how I was feeling, I mean. Did the way I was feeling affect what I saw and did that day? A red light beamed in Trent's mind. The boy was only deceptively docile and naive. He would have to proceed more carefully. So he thought he was going to be like really kind of an easy person to manipulate, but now he can see that Jason is like thinking it through more. Well, if you were worried about something, for instance, it might provide a distraction so that you wouldn't be as sharp with your observations. I see, the boy said. But no, I wasn't upset. In fact, I was kind of happy, I guess you'd call it. I mean, school was over, no more classes, no more homework. Yeah, I guess I was happy. Would that be a distraction? Maybe. We'll see. The boy looked doubtful again. Now, let's go over it once more. At first, you said you saw nobody that afternoon. We've narrowed down the time of possible observations as the afternoon after lunch, 2 periods of time, actually. Prior to the time you spent with Alicia and afterwards. The period where you were on your way to her house and the period where you were on your way home. The first period, who did you see? Whom did you meet? Jason had become aware of how hot the office had gotten, a gathering of heat that seemed to grow in intensity as the questioning went on. He was also aware of how close to him Mr. Trent sat, their knees almost touching. Also, had Mr. Trent suddenly grown taller? He seemed taller now than when Jason had first entered the room. seemed to loom over him. Besides all this, Jason was filled with a sense of failure. He had not seen anyone suspicious. Like I told you before, I didn't see anyone suspicious. But Jason, we don't know yet what a suspicious person would look like. I'm not talking about some stranger lurking at the mouth of an alley. We've established that you don't remember seeing anyone like that. But what I'm looking for is something of a dubious nature. For instance, take a druggist, someone familiar you've done business with in his store, a pharmacy. He's not suspicious in himself, but suppose you saw him out of context from the pharmacy. Seeing the puzzlement on the boy's face, he explained, let's say that you saw him outside the drugstore at a time when he should be in the store. Say you saw him suddenly hurrying through the park. Then a man who was not himself suspicious would suddenly become a questionable figure because of where he was at the moment, or what he was doing at that particular moment. That's what I'm searching for. So tell me, whom you saw that afternoon on the way to Alicia's house? Jason felt more confident now. He would tell Mr. Trent exactly what he saw and let him decide whether there was anything suspicious about it. Well, I saw a mailman. I don't know his name, but I've seen him a lot. He doesn't deliver the mail on our street, but to stores and business places on Main Street. He was delivering mail as usual. Where did you see him? Going into the building between the real estate office and the place next door with all the copy machines and printing stuff. He was carrying a bunch of letters and envelopes. Not out of context then. Testing to be sure that the boy had perceived the meaning of context. Right, just where you'd expect him to be, doing what you'd expect him to be doing. Excellent, Trent said. And Jason smiled with satisfaction. For once, he had provided the right answer, even though he knew it had led nowhere and certainly hadn't helped the investigation. Who else? Trent said, disguising his impatience with these particular queries. Well, a couple of kids from school. Were they alone or together? I mean, did you see them individually or separately? Well, two of them were pushing their bikes. One of the bikes had a flat tire. They were kids from school, but I don't know their names. Younger than you or the same age? Younger, like in the 4th or 5th grade, maybe. And suddenly Jason drew in his breath sharply as an idea occurred to him, stunning in its audacity. At the same moment, he saw Mr. Trent's eyes narrow as if he had somehow seen the idea forming in Jason's mind. What Jason had been thinking, what had taken his breath away, was this. He could make up someone suspicious. He could pretend he had spotted a stranger in town after all. Maybe a strange kid he had never seen before. Someone to satisfy this Mr. Trent, to show that he had been alert. Yet at the same time, Jason knew that he had never been a good liar. He blushed easily, a pulse beating dangerously in his temples whenever he tried to fake someone out. Like sometimes pretending he had done his homework or telling his mother and father that he had no homework at all. In school, when teachers swept their eyes around the room searching for suspicious activity, Jason would immediately begin to blush. So how could he possibly lie to this man whose eyes were so penetrating, who often looked at Jason as if he could see right inside his brain, as he was doing at this minute? Jason looked away, dropped his eyes, acknowledging that he simply could not lie, could not pretend that he had seen what he had not seen.